Good evening, everyone. I just would like to get the meeting started. Not that I'm running anything here or in charge, but
just we're debating who kicks it off.
Just say hello and tell everybody we're ready to go whenever you guys are.
Katie, do you want to get it started, or you or Terry?
I can do whatever I need to do. I don't have any agenda or anything like that. So honestly, I'm here to watch, I guess.
Latasha,
maybe Carrie knows more.
Hey, this is Dolores, so I'm ready to take the horns and let's go with this, if you guys don't mind.
Right.
So my agenda, at least in my head, even though we didn't get a formal one, and I guess that was, whatever, I don't know, I guess we didn't know who was supposed to do that. But I think the agenda for tonight is to determine which of the options that Carrie offered on that evening that she presented to the town council and to the board of supervisors, the presentation, which of the options moving forward would be the best option, and we need to talk about the pros and cons of those options. And so, one, I guess the first option is a tourism director reporting directly to the town, dotted line reporting to the county administrator, and you guys would still remain an advisory board, an advisory committee. Let me use the right terms, right?
It'd be helpful if I pulled it up on the screen for you.
That would be awesome. I have it here, but I don't know if everybody else.
If you can give me control, please.
Yeah, Dolores, my team, I polled my team to see which ones they liked best, and they liked 3B best.
3B. Yes. So, yep. And Cheryl, I don't know have you looked at it? Have you looked at the choices, and do you have a preference?
I'd like to see which ones were which again, because I forgot my papers.
Okay.
So
Dolores, if that was council's choice, but I would like to recommend and throw this out that we start with 3A, yes. because 3B is going to take some while to get everything set up, and Miss Barnhart, she might want to speak to this as well. 3B was overwhelmingly what council is wanting to go with, but we need something in a month's time, and I believe 3A would be the way to go for right now, Dolores.
Yeah, well, 3B and 4. 4, I'm intrigued by 4, which is a grant to specific, I guess, specific task orders, if you will. That's what I'll call them. That's what we call them in the contracting world, where you have a task you want a specific entity to do and you grant the money. But that still requires the legal formation of a board. And if I'm understanding you correctly, the legal formation of the board is what is going to be the time-consuming component.
That's what's going to take some time, Dolores. So
right.
I think, I think 3A may be the way to go to get us up and running for now, with the understanding that 3B is the direction. And I'm not speaking for all of council. Don't get me wrong. Or the board, the county board of supervisors, whichever direction you guys want to go. But 3A may be something that we want to get on the ground fast and run with for the time being.
And I have that option up. Can you guys all see 3A?
yes.
So there's a contractor who reports to the town manager with a dotted line to the county administrator, and then the joint tourism committee remains a committee as an oversight body, and we fully contract that out. What isn't clear to me is who is contracting to who determines the contractor.
I guess that's something that we're going to have to come together here with Dolores and figure out amongst us. I think that going forward would that would be the thing that we're going to have to probably come up with, whether we hire somebody and go that direction, or maybe have, I know there's been talk of the chamber and that sort of thing too. So not really making any suggestions as of right now, but I think that's something we need to talk about, in which direction we need to go with it.
I would be interested in how you got to 3A or 3B. I just think we should, and I don't disagree with it, I'm in full support of it, but I just think we should probably say why 1 and 2 work for you.
Carrie, we at sure we didn't really catch that because it was breaking up for some reason, like really bad.
There's something in the background.
So if somebody has their,
If you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. I think that's the reason why we're hearing so much feedback. And there are a couple people that have their mics muted. Just give you a heads up. Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you.
You want me to say that again?
Please.
Okay. So I would be interested in knowing why you went by 1 and 2. I am in full support of 3 as well, but I think just for due diligence purposes, it would be good to say why 1 and 2 didn't speak to you for this situation.
And that question is to me, Carrie?
To whomever. It seems like there's a consensus already in 3, which is great. There's a consensus, but it'd be good to know why 1 and 2 it doesn't work, or is less of a preference.
Well,
I mean, my first inclination was the model that's on option 1, only because I think when you contract out, sometimes if you get someone that's not as familiar with the area, and that they might not put quite the interest in it or have enough of the background of our community and things, where with this one, it would be someone that's here all the time. I'm not sure if I'm making that make sense or not, but that was my thought for this versus a contractor. But I'm open to everybody's ideas.
so this is Dolores, and I can speak to that, Carrie. That one is the model that we had in place, correct?
Yeah.
And it didn't, apparently it wasn't satisfactory model. So I actually jumped over it for that very reason. I just didn't consider it an option because I figured if we had tried it and it didn't work, why continue to pursue what wasn't working? And instead we should try something new. So at least that's my feeling.
And I see that point, and I can agree with that as well as, a reason to rethink this option for certain. But I also think we're all at a point where we're willing to put more due diligence into this to make it work better second time around too. So I don't know.
If it's helpful, I can go as we go through them, tell you what I learned when I talked to different jurisdictions about their models and what was a positive and negative. I actually also talked to a tourism consultant who sets up tourism organizations throughout the world, actually. And so I'll tell you what they said on each of these, if that's of interest to you in terms of pluses and minuses.
Carrie, my take on that too, Carrie, with that answer was again, option 1 and 2 is somewhat like we have now. In my opinion of this, I would rather see tourism being handled by a joint tourism board. Let's face it, they know more about it than any of us elected officials going on, because they're the eyes and ears of what they need. So That's my take on it. And I want to see tourism flourish myself. It's not that, that we want to kind of, overturn the cart. But, and that was my take on it too, was that, I would rather see it turned over to a board and have people on that board that actually knew what they needed and what's going on. So that's my answer to that, Carrie. I don't know but that was how I see me personally. That's how I see it going forward.
So, Carrie, I'm interested in hearing each of your the color on each of these options that you want to offer. So, I think that would be very beneficial. So, please go ahead.
So on the first one, the in-house, I mean, obviously the big thing here was control, that you completely have control and you can see on a day-to-day basis what is going on, and everything's in-house. And so people feel, actually, the public feels comfortable with that because they feel like it goes right to that entity, and there's no, there's no middleman or anything. It's direct. The downside is that it becomes another department, just like all your other departments, kind of gets lost in the bureaucracy of your organization. It doesn't get highlighted, whereas if you have a contractor, you have a contract, you're looking at the performance metrics, people are intensely looking at it because they can see the dollar figure. It does, so nothing's moving in and out of that budget. It's very clear. And so the other thing was expertise. There was just, from the individuals I talked to, it seemed like a lot of them moved to more of a contractor model because they felt that they got a higher level of expertise because they got more of a specialist, whereas they had something in-house, the person became more of a generalist, there's positive sides to being a generalist too, because you can flex in and out, and you're not stuck with, contract language in terms of, that's not my job. But that's one of the things that the reason that they moved is for expertise often. So that's kind of the two sides of it, contractor, not contractor. The organizations, what I found really interesting, and I think I mentioned it in my presentation, the organizations that were really super destinations typically had Model 3 of all of them. So those are the ones that are like Moab and Sedona and Asheville, North Carolina, and places like that typically had that 3 or 3A or 3B.
So my question on 3A, what happens to the visitor center?
And that was my question.
Yep. So where does it fit in?
So in the visitor center, it's still here. It's under, you see visitor services. So in every model and every person I talked to, visitor services was done in some form or another. So some kind of concierge service, some kind of frontline service. Some of it was more automated. Some of it was more personalized, but people typically could see a person. They could meet with a person, a visitor or a group of visitors. Sometimes it's a visitors bureau, and so they're handling that. In visitor services, if you see it's underneath that contractor box, it goes, it would go to the contractor. And again, visitors bureaus are often contracted out, which I was surprised to see so much of it, but they're often contracted out. Not always to chambers. They're sometimes contracted out to, entities that are just specialized, they're just marketing organizations, or they're just visitor organizations, or they're created just for this cause. But they're paid like a contractor.
So would the contractor then bring in their own employees, keep the current employees, or how does that look?
I talked to one organization that kind of made a transition, and they kind of did the job design and then slotted people if they had the positions that matched the people. And I was happy to see that they did that, because that my background is organizational design. That's one of the reasons I volunteered to do this. And we always, in the organizational design, do not look at the people first. We look at the work, because if you look at the people, sometimes you design an organization to people, and that's not effective. What you typically do is look at the work. What is required? What are we trying to do? What is the vision we have? And then what are the chunks of the work? And what does that work require in terms of skill sets, in terms of competencies, attributes, background, resources, and so forth. And then you kind of look at your staff and you say, do any of those match those new positions that you've designed? And if they do, the incumbent obviously is considered first if they're equal to what is out on the outside. If they don't, then you have to make a decision. Do you want to grow that individual into that position, or do you want to replace that individual with somebody else? And that is a leadership and management decision, not a decision of our committee per se. But we have to say, do we believe that this individual will make the jump if they're not quite what you would have hired from the outside?
So Carrie, when we look at structural option 3A, do we have a feeling for a budget for that kind of option? Because I'm looking here at the budget for 2021, and I'm looking at an estimated $425,000, which assumes 60% lodging tax, and we all know that that's not going to materialize at this point in time. So is there can we do this structural model for, less than $425,000?
So the organizations I looked at really span, the dollar ranges. So Bath County, as you see, they started with a budget that was smaller than what we have. They hired a private marketing organization who does the marketing. It wasn't as broad in terms of some of the functions, and I don't believe they have a visitor services function per se, but it is, again, it depends on how you look at the world, but sometimes you get some efficiencies with professional organizations. That organization, I believe, had other clients, not just Bath County, so that was purely a contractor model. But yeah, I think you can do this. You can do all four models with whatever you have. You just have to manage it carefully, because it could go very quickly.
Yeah, that I can understand that. That seems, and then this is fully contracted out. And so in the contractor decision process, so, I don't see kind of a decision tree here, other than there's a direct report to the town manager and there's a dollar sign. So I'm assuming that the town manager is going to manage the distribution of money to the various entities in this model, correct? Okay.
Right. Just like they would do a town manager or a county administrator would do with any contractor. They set a contract, it's competed, they have money, they have performance measures that they would be looking at. They would, measure the performance, and then it would be renewable. It would be just like any other contractor, except you're contracting out a function of your organization.
Okay.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be the town manager. It can be. We saw a couple of models where it was the county administrator. It was more that office, and the big decision there was whether the area was, like for instance, Sedona, California. It's multiple towns that have something in common, wine, and so that tended to be more of a county, function, with the towns kind of tagging on. Whereas other places where, let's say Asheville is the biggest thing within that county, it typically, was through, Asheville, it's actually the county as well, but where it was, like Moab is a good example, or Yona, it was through the city or the town.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like the model. I think that it's kind of the in-between model, right? It's not the old one. It's not going full force into the board, which we'd have to legally construct, which is going to definitely take, I would think, at a minimum of 90 days, if not longer. And
right.
Yeah. And it'll I think require legal counsel and a lot of things that are, in order to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's. So what do my fellow committee members think about 3A?
One thing with 3B, the closest thing that we have that looks like that, and I hate to say this, but is the EDA. So if you think about the EDA, they are essentially a 3B organization where economic development is done by a third party, and there's a joint board that looks over that third party to manage that, and then it's doing the work of both the town and the county. So that is as close to and it has all the pluses of that. We know in this community what the minuses are, particularly an oversight issue, because it can get away from you. So that's the downside of 3B, but it's powerful in that you have a heavy focus on just that topic, and you don't really get divided.
With that model, could the money be held individually, or as it is now? The town has their portion that they contribute, the county has their portion, and the bills go. I mean, so that the thing here, it looks like the money is put in control of the board to disseminate. If it was in the treasurers where they had to submit bills for check payout, that would at least be an oversight for that.
Yeah, it does create a little, it can create a more equity and oversight of the dollars so that it's not one side versus the other side is favored.
Right.
Carrie, I would like to when we're negotiating this out for the contractor, of course, I know we're going to have to get legal involved in it, but I think it's very important that that whoever we hire is not, under litigation either from the town or the county. And,
that would be.
I want to make that request, please.
Yeah, that would be an important thing. I think that would be important.
This is Billy. I think 3B is where we want to head, but I think we also need to talk about how we make the transition between 3A. We have a I don't know if it's not really a false sense of urgency. It's a real sense of urgency with tourism season upon us, and we're all entering into phase 2, and so there's the urgency, and of course the fall is on its way too. But do we have how would we work? How would we do that? I mean, do we say we're going to start with 3A and spend the time to properly construct our preferred structure of 3B? Do we have how do we go about hiring this contractor, and then when we have the board, then interjecting the board into the organizational chart, so to speak?
So we would have until July of next year to get that worked out. But I believe it's a goal that we could work to, would be able to get to 3B. I think this is something that, this board here may want to continue to meet until we get a plan and a strategy to be able to get to our end goal. If that's the goal is to have a structure option that looks a lot like 3B, then we would have to meet and be able to get it to where we can get to that direction is what I'm trying to say, within July 1st of 2021.
I agree. I think this is going to be something that this board, committee, panel, whatever we're called, needs to stick with this until we know it's on firm footing and working well, so that it can be tweaked or whatever we need to do along the way.
So what I would recommend, if 3A moving to 3B is where you want to go, what I would recommend, this is a conceptual design, where what I would recommend is that you move to more of an organizational design that actually outlines, the positions and then the work. Exactly what is the work? What is it you're asking the contractor to do? And how would you look at success? So putting together the actual work, the actual success metrics, what you think it's worth in terms of, what it would bring, and then go into an RFP. And I did a little bit of because I knew of the situation that we had here. I discussed quite a bit with one entity, and that was Sedona, Arizona, who the woman is the head, she's a chamber head. I was very interested in particularly talking to her. She's also a tourism consultant, and she was very generous with her time. What she said was, that we should absolutely, even if we were thinking of, we had somebody in mind, like a chamber or a marketing organization, she said you should compete it. So she didn't recommend a sole source. She didn't recommend any other kind of way to get there. She said, compete it because you want to make this as transparent as possible, because that is what is demanded in her county, in her city, is for people to understand exactly why the organization is being is being selected. And she has to, every single year, she's the chamber head and the tourism head. Every single year she has to justify her existence. And she thinks that's a good process, but she recommended strongly that we would not just go about this and say, okay, we're going to just do this. She said, you need to go through a much more formal process.
And Carrie, this Dolores, I believe that's an appropriate way to go. But RFPs also take time. It's likely going to take us, 30 days or maybe 21 days to construct an RFP, to kind of put something, to put some teeth into it about what our expectations are. And so I have to ask this question, since 3A or 3B was the consensus of the town council. Do you guys already have an idea of an entity that you have in mind that you could contract to?
Well, in my opinion, I guess going forward, it would probably be a lot quicker if we put an RFP out to somebody to be able to come in and have a look at it and do it for us. I know there's been talk of the chamber doing it, but I believe if the chamber does it, they may have to be restructured a little bit, because I don't know if I can see the chamber taking care of the business side of it and then being able to turn over and do tourism too. In my opinion, they would have to be probably end up being split somehow to be able to handle that. you know, just speaking in my opinion, don't take anything I say, you know, to like it's going to be a recommendation and going out on it. But in my opinion, that would probably be where we need to start and having that conversation, I guess.
But we're kind of looking for a marketing agency is the way that I see the contractor being fully contracted out. We're looking for a marketing agency that can take care of putting together slogans, doing the logos, doing the prints, doing all of those things. So it's not the same as the chamber.
And that's what my thought was, to get someone. Would anybody at the chamber, would they have to hire someone to be a marketing person? Because I only see that as a full-time job, doing just marketing.
It would be. So that's why I'm saying it probably be to put an RFP out to get us going July 1.
But how long? I thought I heard someone say 30 to 90 days to write the RFP. Is that correct?
No, like 2 weeks maybe.
Hear that correctly? Only 2 weeks? Okay.
Carrie, do you think that given that Carrie is likely the RFP person, how long do you think? I think we should ask her.
Well,
how long do you think it would take to put together an RFP, Carrie?
I don't think it would take that long for a couple reasons.
Okay, good.
One, that this used to be what I did for a living, so I can do the design pretty quickly. But the second is that along the way, I picked up technical documentation like contracts from the entities that I talked to. And surprisingly, they just shared everything. So I do have some technical documentation that would help me along the way. But again, it's interesting because you can put it out to and say who can meet these needs. So if a chamber were to bid on it, they would have to say, here's what we would do, and we would probably use some subcontractors to do this, and that's how we would meet the needs. If a marketing organization bid on it, this is what we would do, and we might need a subcontractor to do the relationship management. So we need just to say, what is the work? And they need to respond back, this is how we would creatively do it. And whatever speaks to us is what we would reward. And so I think a marketing organization, a chamber, whoever wants to bid, and we should just be very open to see if somebody can meet the needs as we address them, versus saying this is what a chamber does and therefore it needs to go to the chamber. I think that can take you down a rabbit hole, and that it takes you down preconceived notions. Instead, we should say, here's what we need, here's our vision, here's what we need, here's the work. And then some organizations say, I can do this, and I can do this in this creative way. And so the chamber I agree, the chamber would probably have to reorganize, and they couldn't just do it based on what they have today, but they would respond back in their proposal. Here's the creative way that we would address it.
Yes, Mr. Tiedrick would like to speak for a moment, if that's okay with the board.
I have just for informational purposes, I'm not going to render my opinion on any of the options or any of the feedback, but I think I have some information that might be critical. Considering the pandemic and the impact the pandemic had in this year's budget, town council moved a significant amount of money into a contingency fund. So we cut back in a lot of areas and monies that we're not going to be spending. For instance, the visitor center was closed and there wasn't a lot of tourism taking place. So we shifted money into a contingency fund, recognizing the need of where we are right now, where phase 2 is launching tomorrow, and recognizing the need that we need to start promoting tourism and we need to start promoting business recovery for our local businesses. I have the ability to use some of that contingency money for marketing purposes and to go out and retain the services of a short-term contractor to help you guys, to help the Joint Tourism Committee, and to help the town of Front Royal execute some of their tourism and marketing needs. So I'm in the process of putting together a business recovery consultant who's going to be focusing on the tourism industry. I'm hoping to have that person on by July 1 so that we can task that individual directly to you guys, and they can be your labor, so to speak. I know you're all volunteers, so I think having somebody that can help pull all this together and help in that regard could be beneficial, and the person's going to have expertise in the tourism industry. So I wanted to share that just as a point of information.
So Matt, a clarification on, is that a person who is actually going to do the tourism work, or is it a person who's going to structure the new tourism organization?
No, ma'am. No, I don't. They're not. Their mission is not to structure. That's the Joint Tourism Committee. And if you want to give this person advice, if you want to give this person tasks, we can easily assign them to you as a stakeholder. Not a problem. But their mission is to execute, various campaigns that may come up, marketing campaign, a promotional campaign, putting a video together. Anything like that. I need someone other than the visitor center folks who are doing a great job. They're wearing dual hats right now, and I think I need somebody in the short term to oversee the tourism aspect. Does that make sense?
So Matt, what's the title of this person?
I'm having a consultant. I mean, I don't. We're talking about a 90-day fill-in until the Joint Tourism Committee is ready to assume whatever responsibility, maybe until the contractor gets hired under this model, to terminate the contract with this individual or group.
So would that be Elena, the person who's doing our Facebook post now?
I'm sorry?
Would that be Elena, the person doing our Facebook post now?
No, I don't think so. She could, I guess, bid on it, but I don't think so. I don't think she's qualified quite to do that. I don't think she's qualified to help you guys structure, to assist in structure if that's what you want. Does that make sense?
So Matt, this is like a temp tourism director.
You could say that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
All right. That's just so we can understand what it is.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
I just see the need of having somebody help until 3A or 3B gets figured out. That's what I'm trying to do. And the governor lifted the phase 2. So, I mean, I think we're at a point where we're going to need to start promoting tourism again. Thank you. I just wanted to share that information.
So next steps. It sounds like 3A, the move to 3B is the consensus.
So this is Dolores, and I guess the next steps is, we need to get the approval of each of our boards in order to move forward. I think that we'll need to get, June 16th, I guess, is that our next meeting, Cheryl?
June 16th.
Would be probably that week is would be our first opportunity to vote on it.
The 9th, do we need to put that on for discussion for the 9th, or do we just go to it on the 16th?
Yeah, and we can do that. We can likely just put it on in a work session on the 9th. I think that's probably the best approach. And then if we have to vote on it, I don't know if we're going to need to vote on it. So because the money's already allocated to tourism and the Joint Tourism Committee already exists, so I'm not sure if we actually need to vote on it, but we can at least inform, discuss, and get consensus. Does that make sense?
I think so. And just one question to Carrie and Billy and Katie. Are the businesses, how do the businesses feel about these models? Because I don't want to be making decisions and then not have their input as well. How do they feel about all the models, and which one do they think will work the best for their benefit?
I've already said I think 3B is where we ought to be headed. And I heard someone else mention even 4 as an option, but that would be our preference here at Groom.
Okay.
I think Carrie had a good point in some of our presentations before, in that every single one of these could work. It depends on how you do it and how you make it effective. And so I do feel like number 1, we kind of know that didn't work last time, so I feel like we have all moved past that. I think 3A is a great stepping stone in the right direction, but I do think any of them could work. I don't think they're at 4 yet.
Okay, thank you.
I think the one downfall for the 3B model is its the resemblance of the EDA and the problems that we're all still very sensitive to. So we're going to have to try real hard to mitigate that particular downfall.
I think one of the complications, and you'll see people kind of across the board, is that tourism has sometimes been equated with the community development or the kind of just the downtown business support. And while there's great overlap there, tourism really is for those outside of the community to visit our community and to use the commercial services of our community to bring in revenue. And there's just been such a mix here. So if you look at like visitor service, the visitor center, a lot of their followers are just people within the town and county. And the businesses, I think were supported greatly by our former tourism director and that organization for not only tourism, but for just regular community development and, things that went on, local things that went on and supported them locally. So this tourism is completely about tourism. It's not about the other. And if it were just about tourism, I think you'd have a different answer versus if it were combined tourism and like local business support, which I think are 2 different things.
So, Carrie, can you work on developing the organizational piece of the 3A?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can see some of the options of how that organizational structure might work?
Yep, I can do. What I'll do is I'll take this and I'll break it down into functions, and I'll also put together some contract language and some performance metrics associated with this as well. So, and then those pieces should be very easily lifted into an RFP.
Okay.
And if somebody in the town could send me your typical RFP format, I'm used to commercial and federal RFP formats. So they could provide me what you guys use. That would be helpful.
Okay, Carrie, I'll ask Doug for that.
Okay. One of the only other pieces here I think has to be considered is in this model, the money has to come together. And so where it is right now is you got the county spending money, you got the town spending money. They're like both doing a video. They're both, some of it is connected, some of it's not connected. And so in these models, and what we recommended is that money come together. And so that is one entity, and it's pooled together. And so I think you'd have to figure out if it's going to run through the town, I think you have to figure out how to get that county money allocated over to the town and under one purview. And then the trust has to be there that it's being applied to things that benefit the whole. And so that's new. So it's no small feat. Given our history and given what we're talking about. But if that doesn't happen, that money doesn't get pooled, we're kind of in the same situation that we've been in, where we have kind of competing visions, competing, things that conflict with each other, and some of it goes together and some of it doesn't.
Well, Carrie, I'm really glad you brought that up because, unfortunately, with the town and the county, there's an us and them perception. And we are here to say that we are going to end that perception. We are an all us, and this tourism effort is going to be an all us. And I think that in order to accomplish that, we need to keep the lines of communication open so that somebody from the county, the Board of Supervisors, will maintain a presence on this committee. Somebody from the town can maintain a presence on this committee and be actively involved in reporting back to our boards about what the decisions have been. And I mean, I envision that you guys are going to have a strategy, whether it be marketing or metrics, and you're going to base that on how you're marketing. You're going to take the metrics and determine your marketing strategy around it. That's, and we'll be able to deliver that information back to our board. So that they understand what's going on. And that, I think, if we can do that as a unified front, can go a long way in this community. We aren't unified, and I'm going to call out the elephant in the room, and we're going to have to really work together in order to do that. And I think tourism is a great place to start that unification process.
That's a good thing to hear. And interestingly, the other entities that I talked to, surprisingly, all of them had that same, struggle. There's a city and there's a county in almost every situation. And they need to work together on it. And all of them talked about things that they did. And one of them is joint visioning, joint planning, and joint performance. And so I'm glad to hear that, Dolores, because I think that's what is really needed here.
Carrie, just to give you some information regarding your question or statement as it relates to the funding and the trust as it relates to the town of Front Royal spending the money appropriately. In my conversations with the finance director, because he's going to be here after I'm gone for some institutional knowledge, as we interpreted 3A, and I believe how some council members interpreted 3A, the town is only going to serve as a fiduciary agent, meaning the actual recommendation of spending the money is going to come from the Joint Tourism Committee. We recommend you spend here, and basically the town is just writing checks based upon the direction of the Joint Tourism Committee. Now, happy to make that different, but that's how we interpret it to alleviate any concerns about just trust issues or whatever the case is. That's how we interpreted 3A. So if that was different, let me know.
Yeah, it's almost there, but really 3A takes some leadership and management responsibility from the town. So it's not just here's the dollars. 3B gets into more of a board that is very heavily in making those leadership and management decisions. They're managing that function. Is why they become a board, not only for dollars purposes, but for management. So this Joint Tourism Committee in this model stays as an advisory committee. And does the staff work for the town manager or whoever that entity is that the contractor's accountable to, but they are not managing them. So the town manager has both a fiduciary and management leadership responsibility for that contractor. So they are making the final call on where to spend the money. Again, 3B gets them out of that, and it's more of a, here's some, just like the EDA, here's the money, and you guys are the professionals in economic development, and we have a vision, and we're going to, be at the table to do the strategy with you. That day-to-day management is that board. So that's the difference. So not quite, Matt, what you said, there is some management responsibility of that town.
Okay.
And Carrie, I'm not afraid of 3B at all. And I don't mind the the relationship in terms of the way the EDA is structured, because, the structure isn't the problem.
Right.
The problem are the actors.
Yeah.
So I am all for, I want professionals who understand how to do their job to execute this to the benefit of our community. And, we know what we have, but we may not know how to market what we have. And so, I want professionals to be able to do that. So moving to 3B, I think, I'm not concerned about how the model or the structure is similar, because I think it's going to solve the problem that we're looking for.
It's actually one of the most effective models in terms of some of the kind of the biggest, tourism areas, and you can see the list there. Asheville and Arizona, Sedona, Denver's run that way. Also, Moab, Utah's run that way. So it's really those, and some of those, areas are small in terms of population, but they do a fantastic job because it's a very professional job, and it's a very focused job in terms of tourism. And so it can be a really great model. And so, like Katie said before, you just have to mitigate against the downsides of any model. And this one would be just going to sleep and letting somebody run it without you watching it carefully. So that would be the downside.
Carrie, what's the quickest you believe that between getting the joint tourism board and the planning and the budgeting and the fiscal mechanisms in place, how, in your professional opinion, Carrie, and I know you're the pro in this, how long or how fast can you see us being able to get this up and running? Because I was totally worried about, how long it's going to take to get a board together and all this stuff. And I know we're in a bit of a crunch and we're about ready to start, tourism again because, for all the COVID-19 regulations and stuff being lifted. In your professional opinion, I guess how long do you see before we can get this up and going, at least in a direction? And I know it may not be quite as perfect and everybody going, to where they see it on both sides, but to get it operational to where we can be able to use this model. That would be my question, Carrie. I don't know, like I said, I'm sorry if I tend to ramble sometimes.
No, it's a great question, and it's interesting because I worked for a Fortune 50 company for 20 years and also work with other Fortune 50 companies, and they can do this overnight. And if it is your priority and you have the focus on it, you can acquire a new organization and restructure it overnight. Whether it goes culturally in the way that direction you want, that takes a little bit longer, but you can, make it happen and restructure it and hire people and do all of that rather quickly. I'm not as used to local government, and so that question has to be for you guys in terms of how much of a priority is this. If you make it a higher priority, we can get it done a lot faster. So, but I
think it should be the highest priority.
It's a huge priority right now. We got to get this going. And when I was looking at these, I was looking at speed wise as well. Not where we quite want it to be. I know as the majority of council sees it as a 3B, and I myself, that's where I see tourism. But with a month before, July 1st and heading right into the middle of tourism season for us here in the county, between that and the fall is what's going to be the fastest to be able to get this on track.
Yeah, I think the 3A to go to 3B is probably a smart thing, just because you have to, you're probably going to have to redo the board. I don't think the volunteers on our board didn't expect to be, on our committee didn't expect to be board members per se. So you might have to repost those and repost the positions and so forth. But I'm not sure, the setup of it can be done overnight, and then how long your procurement process is, I have no idea what it takes in terms of once you have an RFP out, what you guys go through. But an RFP can be constructed and the organization can be designed, in a week if we need to do that.
I mean, I can talk with our town manager about possibly posting these and getting a pool of candidates that would be interested, because I mean ultimately they're the ones that know, Carrie, how to handle this. Not so much elected people. Tourism, it's important. I know it's important to our citizens. It's important to everybody, because they take a huge break from the tax for our citizens. And I just I don't know. I just I want to. I can see if they can get it posted. If that's first of all, I guess I'm going to have to go back to council and check and make sure that is 100% the direction they want to go. But
well, if you're going to post the board, I can give you language in terms of what that position would be. So again, I could pull from others and say this is how they describe other boards and what the responsibilities are of other boards. But if you want to use the committee to do that, you have a standing committee now that can stay in place for the meantime, and we could get the contractor. We could start with the contractor in the 3A and get the contractor up and running, and then move to the board. There's pluses and minuses of both. You might want your board to be the one who selects the contractor because they're going to have to live with them.
Yeah. Thank you, Carrie.
Well, and you guys are the stakeholders, Carrie. So I think the selection of the contractor should be, primarily from the board, as well as, I guess in cooperation with both the town and the county in terms of what direction and what the vision is. But you guys are, have been chosen to advise. So, if you're okay with that. I understand the board does bring a whole different level of responsibility should we convert to that. But, if we can, since we are in a time crunch, we could explore this board, I think, over a period of time and not be so quick. I don't want to set something up that isn't fully vetted. So I think we should start with the pieces we have in place today and then move forward with what we have. And then we can explore how the board could function and what the legalities are. I'm sure that it's in the Code of Virginia as well. Mm-hmm. So we can explore those things. Yep. All right. So I guess our next steps are to leave and present the options to our boards and come back to you with direction. Okay. Is that what you guys think? Latasha?
Already agreed on 3B. So, I mean, if we want to take it back and just to say we're going to do 3A and ease into 3B, that's fine too.
Do any of you have any additional questions or requests?
I have one question about structural option 4, because I knew, Dolores, you said that was of interest to you, and we didn't talk about that. The good part of that structure, from what people have told me, is you get to kind of change it all the time, and you get to really pinpoint your experts. So you say, you can run this kind of festival, you can do this kind of marketing, you can do, and then we're giving money to, things like the library for tourism. They had different categories. And it really could be really creative and flexible and could change year to year. So that's a plus. The downside is the vision is hard to keep together when you have different entities kind of executing, and it can get disjointed pretty quickly. So that's the downside. So so that's, but it's probably the most flexible model of all of them.
Well, I was intrigued by it because of that reason. I thought you could assign specific tasks to entities and have them execute those tasks. And once the vision is created, then you can break down the task and maybe do that, and it would give you a lot more flexibility. And you could change next year what didn't work this year, right? You could, and potentially take a different direction. Who uses that? I don't have that one up in front of me. Does Winchester?
No.
Frederick Maryland.
Yeah, Frederick Maryland. We also, Richard, who's on our committee, he said where he was from in Florida, I think Katie, he told us this, right? They use that model exclusively, and it worked great, he said, because again, they had the flexibility just to do, kind of roll with different and morph with different things that we could, it's more customized. But again, the downside is you got a lot of entities and they don't always move in the same direction. So.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well, I guess that we have what we need to go back to the Board of Supervisors and the Town Council and, deliver what the options are that we discuss and what we recommend. And then we can come back to you, Carrie, and say, execute an RFP and, and we'll remain involved. I guess we can set up another joint meeting where we can look at the RFP and maybe talk about what we're asking for. And, and get you and Katie and, your committee's, vision about what you envision this person doing and what might be the most important components.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, thank you again for spearheading this for us.
Yes.
I just, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this and what you did for us. Again, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's also a lot of discussions with our committee, which we've talked about this for quite a bit. So I got to go out and talk to others, but we've, I think we're all on the same page in terms of this is the importance of it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank your committee as well. Thank all of you for what you've done to help drive this effort.
So are we going to try to set a date tonight or just give her time and she'll get back with
I think we just need to get it on the work session for next week. And I don't know if we're too late, but I'm going to request tomorrow and then we can set up I guess we can get Taryn to set up our next meeting. I think Taryn is still involved in that.
Okay. Hopefully next time we can all be in the same room.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, this is Billy. I just lost my router. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm, and I get to hear the last 10, probably the most critical 10 minutes. But I presume you all are talking about a plan of action, a way to get from point A to point B.
We are, Billy. We are, and I live near you, and I have the same storm going on. Fortunately, my internet stayed up. But yeah, we're gonna go back to our various boards and get their buy-in, present what we have, and get their consensus. And then the next piece of it would be to construct the organizational chart and RFP.
All right, and I guess at some point there will be an involvement by the town and county attorneys to actually write the bylaws of the board itself, so that at that point people who want to be on the board can understand and know what the responsibilities are.
Absolutely. We've discussed that, the Code of Virginia also has some distinct requirements, I believe, around boards and what their responsibilities are. And so we'll definitely do that as we move to 3B. Or maybe four. Or maybe four.
All right, thank you for that. I'm interested in seeing it, I guess many others, seeing it move along as quickly as possible. I've been and many of us have been on the tourism committee for 2 years or more, and it's very encouraging to think that we have the chance to actually move along a little bit more quickly and make some good things happen.
Wow. We appreciate your commitment to being on for such a long time and for helping. So hopefully this is going to be an effective and good joint effort in working tourism to the benefit of the whole community.
I'm sure everyone agrees with that.
All right.
Good night.
All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.